Intro. Wealth begins in the mind. You train. Most people try to change their money without changing the mind that keeps repeating the same financial life. They try to earn more, they try to push harder, they try to chase the next opportunity, the next strategy, the next breakthrough. But if the mind is still trained by fear, pressure, scarcity, and doubt, even more money can feel unsafe. Even a good opportunity can feel overwhelming. Even progress can disappear because the person inside has not yet learned how to hold it with calm responsibility. So tonight, we begin differently. Not with panic, not with pressure, not with the need to force your life to change before you rest. We begin with the mind. As you listen, let your body relax. Let your breathing slow down. Let your shoulders soften. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You do not need to have every answer. You only need to become quiet enough to receive a new way of thinking. Welcome to Inner Power Audio. If this audiobook helps you feel calmer, clearer, and more prepared to build your future, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who is quietly working to become better. Tonight, we are not talking about quick money. We are not talking about luck. We are not talking about pretending to be rich, repeating empty words, or waiting for wealth to appear without discipline, value, or responsibility. This is not fantasy wealth. This is training. Training the mind to become calmer around money. Training the mind to notice opportunity instead of only seeing limitation. Training the mind to create value instead of chasing approval. Training the mind to receive more without guilt, manage more without fear, and grow without losing its center. Because wealth is not only something you earn, it is something you learn to hold. It is something you learn to respect. It is something you learn to build with steady choices, repeated habits, and a clear inner identity. Many people spend their lives chasing money from stress. They wake up already tense. They compare themselves to people online. They feel behind before the day even begins. They work harder, but not always wiser. They want more, but they do not feel safe with what they already have. So when money comes in, it creates pressure. When opportunity appears, it creates doubt. When they finally make progress, part of them expects to lose it. This is why the trained mind matters. A trained mind does not say, money will magically come to me. A trained mind says, I am becoming the kind of person who can create value, make clear decisions, manage resources, and stay calm while I grow. That is a different state, not desperate, not careless, not afraid, steady, clear, prepared. And that is the state we are building in this audiobook. As we move through this journey, you will begin by looking at the identity behind your financial life. Not to judge yourself, but to understand what has felt normal, safe, or possible for you until now. Then, you will learn to recognize the scarcity pattern, the voice that often sounds logical, but is actually fear trying to keep you small. You will build emotional safety around money, so you can look at your numbers, your choices, your bills, and your goals with more calm and less shame. You will train your attention to see opportunity, not by denying reality, but by learning to notice problems you can solve, skills you can build, and value you can create. You will learn why wealth becomes more stable when you stop chasing urgency and start building systems. You will practice the mindset of an owner, someone who asks, what part of this is mine to improve? And as your body relaxes deeper, we will speak to the subconscious mind before sleep. You will learn how the final thoughts of the night can shape the emotional tone you carry into tomorrow. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to a stronger version of yourself, a calmer version, a clearer version, a version of you that no longer has to chase from fear because you are learning to build from power. Real abundance is not loud. It does not need chaos. It does not need constant proof. It is quiet strength. It is the discipline to keep showing up. It is the wisdom to pause before reacting. It is the confidence to create value before asking for reward. It is the responsibility to manage what you already have while preparing yourself for more. So tonight, allow each chapter to become a seed. You do not have to force the seed to grow. You only have to place it in the right environment. Return to it with patience and protect it from the noise that once kept you small. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind open. Let the old story begin to loosen. You are not here to deny reality. You're here to meet reality with more clarity. You are not here to become reckless. You are here to become responsible. You are not here to chase money in fear. You are here to train the mind that can build wealth in peace. So let us begin. Slowly, quietly, with no pressure to prove anything tonight. Train the mind first. Wealth follows the person you become. And now, we begin with the identity behind your financial life. Chapter 1. Rewrite your wealth identity. Your financial life is not shaped only by what you earn. It is shaped by what feels normal to you, what feels safe, what feels possible, what feels too big to hold, what feels like something a person like you is allowed to have. This is your wealth identity. It is the quiet picture you carry of yourself in relation to money, success, opportunity, and responsibility. Most people never stop to examine this picture. They simply live from it. They make choices, avoid risks, accept limits, and repeat patterns without realizing that many of those patterns were built long before they had the power to question them. Maybe you learned that money is always stressful. Maybe you learned that wealthy people are selfish. Maybe you learned that wanting more makes you greedy. Maybe you learned that asking for more creates conflict. Maybe you learned that success makes people judge you. Maybe you learned that no matter how much money comes in, it will never stay. These beliefs do not always speak loudly. They often whisper, but they shape behavior. They show up when you undercharge for your work. They show up when you avoid checking your numbers. They show up when you feel guilty for wanting more. They show up when you receive an opportunity, then immediately look for reasons you are not ready. They show up when progress feels uncomfortable, not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. This is why wealth identity matters. Because the mind does not only move toward what you want, it moves toward what feels familiar. If struggle has felt familiar for years, peace can feel strange. If instability has felt familiar for years, structure can feel suspicious. If working hard but never getting ahead has felt familiar for years, receiving more can feel uncomfortable even when you deeply desire it. So the first step is not to blame yourself. The first step is to notice. Notice the story your mind tells when you think about money. Notice the emotion that rises when you imagine earning more. Notice what happens inside you when you think about charging more, saving more, investing in yourself, or building something larger than what you have known before. Do you expand? Or do you contract? Do you feel calm? Or do you immediately explain why it cannot happen? That reaction is not random. It is a signal. It shows you where the old identity ends, and once you see the edge of the old identity, you can begin to rewrite it. Not through fantasy, not through pretending, not by forcing yourself to believe words that feel false. You rewrite it with honest language and repeated evidence. A weak identity says, I am bad with money. A trained identity says, I am learning to manage money with calm and structure. A weak identity says, money never stays with me. A trained identity says, I am becoming someone who gives money a clear place to go. A weak identity says, I do not deserve more. A trained identity says, I am building the skills, responsibility, and value to receive more wisely. Feel the difference. The new identity does not lie. It does not deny your current reality. It does not pretend that everything is perfect. It simply gives your mind a stronger direction than the old story. This matters because your mind will often reject statements that feel too far from what it currently believes. If you repeat, I am extremely wealthy, While every part of you feels resistance, shame, or disbelief, the statement may create tension instead of transformation. But if you say, "I am learning to think, act, and choose like a person who can build wealth responsibly," your mind has room to grow into it. There is honesty in that sentence. There is movement. There is responsibility. And movement is where identity begins to change. You do not become a new person by making one dramatic declaration. You become a new person by collecting proof. Small proof. Quiet proof. Repeated proof. Every time you look at your financial reality without running away, you cast a vote for a stronger identity. Every time you pause before spending from impulse, you cast another vote. Every time you finish a task that increases your value, you cast another vote. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, you teach your mind a new truth. You're not trapped inside the old pattern. You are becoming someone steadier, someone clearer, someone more prepared. This is how identity changes, not by pressure, by evidence. The mind trusts evidence, and when evidence is repeated long enough, the old story begins to lose authority. Think of your wealth identity as an inner room. For years, that room may have been filled with old voices, warnings, limitations, family beliefs, past mistakes, memories of not having enough, moments of embarrassment. But now, you're not destroying the room, you are redesigning it. You are opening the windows. You are removing what no longer belongs. You are making space for calmer thoughts, stronger standards, and a more responsible way of living. You're choosing what kind of person you are becoming around money. Calm, responsible, capable, valuable, willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to receive without shame, willing to manage without fear. And this new identity must become practical. It must touch the way you live. So begin simply. Write down 3 old money beliefs that have followed you for years. Do not judge them, just name them. Maybe one says, "I always fall behind." Maybe one says, "I cannot handle large amounts of money." Maybe one says, "Success will make people leave me." Once you name them, rewrite each one with calm responsibility. "I always fall behind" becomes, "I am learning to plan ahead and return to structure." "I cannot handle large amounts of money" becomes, "I can practice managing what I have, so I become prepared for more." "Success will make people leave me" becomes, "I can grow and still stay grounded, kind, and connected." This is how you begin. Not with noise, not with force. With a new identity, your mind can believe one step at a time. And tonight, as you relax, let this idea settle deeper. You're allowed to outgrow the financial identity you inherited. You're allowed to become more responsible than your past. You're allowed to become more peaceful around money than the environment that shaped you. You're allowed to receive more, manage more, and still remain grounded in who you are. Your wealth identity is not fixed. It is trained. It is repeated. It is proven. And from this moment forward, you can begin to prove something new. Change what feels normal, and your financial life begins to change. So choose carefully what you allow to become normal. Choose calm, choose responsibility, choose growth. Choose the identity of someone who is learning how to build wealth from the inside out. And as this new identity begins to form, the next step is to recognize the pattern that has kept so many people small for too long. Scarcity. The fear that sounds like logic. The old voice that tells you to shrink before you even begin. That is where we go next. Chapter 2. Break the scarcity pattern. Scarcity is not only the absence of money. It is the habit of seeing life through the fear of losing. It is the tightness in your chest when a bill arrives. It is the quick no before you even understand the opportunity. It is the voice that says, "Be careful," when what it really means is, "Stay small." And this is important to understand. Being careful is not the problem. Wisdom is careful. Discipline is careful. A person who respects money should think before spending, pause before investing, and measure decisions with clarity. But scarcity is different. Scarcity is fear pretending to be wisdom. It does not guide you. It traps you. It makes every decision feel dangerous. It makes every number feel threatening. It makes every risk feel like proof that you should not move. And over time, this old pattern can become so familiar that you start calling it your personality. You say, "I'm just realistic." But sometimes, realism is not the truth. Sometimes, it is an old fear wearing a serious face. This fear pattern often begins with protection. Maybe at some point in your life, caution helped you survive. Maybe you had to watch every dollar. Maybe you saw people argue about money. Maybe you experienced loss, debt, instability, or disappointment. So your mind learned to tighten. It learned to scan for danger. It learned to expect that something could go wrong. That response may have protected you once, but what protects you in one season can limit you in another. A locked door can keep danger out, but if it stays locked forever, it also keeps opportunity out. This is how the shrinking voice works. It closes the door before you can look outside. Instead of asking, "How can I approach this wisely?" it says, "I cannot." Instead of asking, "What skill would help me grow?" it says, "That is not for me." Instead of asking, "What is the next responsible step?" it says, "Do nothing. Stay where you are. At least this is familiar." The old pattern loves familiar discomfort. It would rather keep you in a known struggle than allow you to step into an unknown possibility, and that is why breaking it requires awareness, not shame. Not reckless spending, not pretending money does not matter. Awareness. You do not need to fight the fear tonight. You only need to see it clearly. Let the body soften around this idea. Let the mind become still enough to notice the difference between wisdom and fear. You break the pattern by learning to pause. A pause creates space between fear and decision. A pause gives your mind time to separate real danger from old discomfort. A pause allows you to ask better questions. And better questions can change the direction of your life. The next time you hear yourself say, "I can't afford it," pause. Do not immediately believe the sentence. Do not immediately reject it either. Just pause and ask, "Is this actually impossible? Or have I not explored a wise path yet?" Sometimes the answer will still be no, and that is okay. A calm no is different from a fearful no. A calm no says, "This is not aligned right now." A fearful no says, "I am not allowed to even consider it." Feel the difference. One protects your future, the other protects your fear. This is where financial maturity begins. Not in saying yes to everything, not in chasing every dream without structure, but in learning to respond from clarity instead of contraction. When fear controls the decision, it shortens your vision. You only see the immediate cost. You only see what could go wrong today. You only see what might be lost. But a trained mind learns to look at the full picture. It asks, "What is the cost?" Then it asks, "What is the value?" It asks, "What is the risk?" Then it asks, "What is the lesson?" It asks, "What could I lose?" Then it asks, "What could I build if I approach this with patience and discipline?" This does not make you reckless. It makes you more complete, because fear only shows you one side of the decision. Clarity shows you the whole room. The old pattern also changes your language, and language matters because it trains the mind. When you repeat, "I never have enough," your attention begins to search for proof. When you repeat, "Everything is too expensive," your mind stops looking for creative options. When you repeat, "People like me cannot do that," you give your future a smaller container. So begin listening to the sentences you say around money. Not with judgment, with curiosity. Every shrinking sentence is a doorway. Behind it, there is usually a fear. Behind the fear, there is usually an old experience. And behind the old experience, there is a choice you can make now. You can choose a new question. Instead of saying, "I cannot afford anything," ask, "What is the wise next step?" Instead of saying, "This is impossible," ask, "What would make this possible over time?" Instead of saying, "I am behind," ask, "What small action would put me back in motion today?" These questions do not deny reality. They return your power to you. They remind you that even when you cannot control everything, you can still control your posture toward the situation. And posture matters. Fear collapses inward. It tightens. It rushes. It hides. Wisdom stands still. It breathes. It observes. It chooses. So tonight, practice this slowly. Think of one area where money has made you feel small. Maybe it is a bill. Maybe it is a goal. Maybe it is a conversation you avoid. Maybe it is a price you are afraid to charge. Maybe it is an opportunity you keep postponing because it feels bigger than the version of you that existed before. Now breathe into that place. Do not force an answer. Just create space. Ask yourself gently, is this fear trying to protect me, or is it trying to limit me? Then ask, what would calm responsibility choose? Not panic, not avoidance, not impulsive confidence, calm responsibility. That is the new standard. Because abundance is not the opposite of caution. Abundance is caution guided by possibility. It is the ability to honor risk without worshiping it. It is the ability to respect money without fearing it. It is the ability to say no from wisdom and yes from clarity. And the more you practice this, the quieter the old pattern becomes. It may still speak, but it will no longer lead. It may still knock on the door, but it will no longer own the room. You are learning to hear the difference between fear and wisdom. You are learning to pause before shrinking. You are learning to ask better questions. You are learning to let your future become larger than your fear. Scarcity reacts, wealth thinks. So the next time fear speaks in the language of logic, pause, breathe, look again. There may be more options than the old pattern allowed you to see. And as this fear pattern begins to loosen, the next step is to build something deeper, a sense of safety around money itself. Because when money no longer feels like a threat, your mind can finally meet it with calm. That is where we go next. Chapter 3. Build emotional safety around money. Money becomes easier to manage when it no longer feels like a threat. This is where many people struggle. Not because they are unintelligent, not because they are lazy, not because they do not care, but because money has become emotionally charged. A bank account is not just a bank account. A bill is not just a bill. A price is not just a price. A financial conversation is not just a conversation. For many people, money carries memories, pressure, embarrassment, arguments, regret, silence, comparison, the feeling of not having enough, the feeling of being judged, the feeling of being behind. So when they face money, they are not only facing numbers, they are facing emotion. And when the emotion becomes too strong, the mind tries to escape. It avoids checking the account. It delays opening the bill. It spends quickly to feel relief. It says yes to things it cannot afford because saying no feels uncomfortable. It says no to growth because growth feels too risky. This is not financial weakness, it is emotional overload. And emotional overload makes clear decisions harder. That is why the next step is safety, not comfort. Safety. Comfort says, I do not want to look. Safety says, I can look without falling apart. Comfort says, let me avoid this. Safety says, I can face this slowly. Comfort wants to escape the feeling. Safety teaches the body that the feeling can be handled. This is the foundation of calm financial power. You're not trying to become emotionless. You're not trying to turn yourself into a machine. You are learning to stay present when money appears. Present with the number. Present with the bill. Present with the goal. Present with the decision. Present with the discomfort. Because the calmer you become around money, the wiser your choices become. Start with something simple. Choose one financial number you usually avoid. Maybe it is your bank balance. Maybe it is your monthly spending. Maybe it is your credit card balance. Maybe it is your income. Maybe it is the amount you want to save. Do not choose the most painful number first. Choose one number you can face gently. Then look at it without adding a story. Just the number. No shame, no drama, no punishment, no sentence that begins with, "I always." No sentence that begins with, "I never." Just observe. This is the amount. This is the current reality. This is something you can work with. A number is not an insult. A number is not a verdict. A number is not your worth. A number is a signal. It shows you where you are standing so you can choose where to step next. When you can look calmly, you stop being controlled by what you refuse to see. Avoidance makes money feel larger than it is. Observation brings it back into size. This does not mean every number will feel good. Some numbers may feel heavy. Some may feel disappointing. Some may remind you of choices you wish you had made differently. But even then, you can breathe. You can stay. You can say, "This is something I can work with." That one sentence changes the atmosphere inside you. This is something I can work with. Say it slowly. This is something I can work with. The purpose is not to judge the past. The purpose is to regain the ability to respond. When money feels unsafe, your mind often moves into extremes. It either avoids everything or tries to fix everything at once. Both create pressure. Calm financial safety chooses a smaller path. One clear number. One honest observation. One next step. That is enough. If you see that your spending is higher than you thought, the next step is not to attack yourself. The next step is to identify one category. Food, subscriptions, impulse purchases, transportation, entertainment. Choose one place to bring awareness, not 10. 1. If you see that your savings are lower than you wanted, the next step is not panic. The next step is to choose one amount, even a small amount, and give it a place to go. If you see that a bill is overdue, the next step is not hiding. The next step is opening it, reading it, and deciding the first responsible action. Emotional safety grows when your mind learns, "I can face money and survive the feeling." Then, over time, it learns something stronger. "I can face money and make a wise choice." That is the shift. From avoidance to observation, from observation to choice, from choice to confidence, and confidence built this way is quiet. It does not need to impress anyone. It does not need to appear rich. It does not need to pretend everything is perfect. It simply says, "I can look, I can breathe, I can choose." At night, the mind carries what remains unresolved. And you do not need to solve your entire financial life before you rest. You only need to show your mind that you are no longer running from it. Even one calm next step can tell the body, "This is being handled." Not solved completely. Handled. There is peace in that. So tonight, imagine yourself sitting quietly with a simple piece of paper. No pressure, no judgment. Just 3 lines. What number do I need to look at? What emotion comes up when I see it? What is one calm next step? That is all. One number, one emotion, one next step. This small practice trains emotional safety. It teaches you that money can be approached slowly. It teaches you that discomfort does not have to control the decision. It teaches you that responsibility can feel peaceful. And as you repeat this, money begins to lose its power to shock you. A bill becomes something you can face. A balance becomes something you can understand. A goal becomes something you can plan for. A mistake becomes something you can learn from. A decision becomes a chance to practice clarity. This is how calm grows. Not by avoiding money, not by fearing money, not by worshipping money, but by meeting it with presence. The more present you become, the less dramatic money feels. The less dramatic money feels, the more clearly you can think. The more clearly you think, the better you can choose. And the better you choose, the more trust you build with yourself. That trust matters, because wealth is not only built with income, it is built with the ability to stay steady while making decisions. So let this settle tonight. You can look at money without shame. You can face numbers without losing yourself. You can correct a mistake without becoming the mistake. You can make a plan without needing the whole future to be perfect. You can breathe before choosing. You can slow down before reacting. You can build safety, one honest moment at a time. The calmer you become around money, the wiser your choices become. And once your mind is no longer busy defending itself from money, it can begin to notice something new. Super openings, patterns, needs, problems you can solve, skills you can build, quiet opportunities that were always nearby, but difficult to see through fear. That is where we go next. Chapter 4. Train your attention to see. Opportunity does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly. As a problem someone needs solved. As a skill you keep postponing. As a conversation you almost ignore. As a small opening hidden inside an ordinary day. But the mind can only notice what it has been trained to see. If your attention is always pulled toward what is missing, you will keep finding proof that life is limited. If your attention is always pulled toward comparison, you will keep seeing reasons to feel behind. If your attention is always pulled toward fear, you will miss the quiet places where growth is trying to begin. This does not mean you deny reality. It does not mean you pretend every problem is a blessing. It does not mean you force yourself to be positive when something difficult is happening. A trained mind does not ignore problems. It studies them, because many opportunities begin as problems. A person needs help. A process is broken. A market is frustrated. A skill is missing. A system is inefficient. A question has not been answered well. And where there is a problem, there may be a place to create value. This is the shift. The untrained mind sees a problem and asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The trained mind sees a problem and asks, "What is this showing me?" The untrained mind sees difficulty in contracts. The trained mind becomes curious, not reckless. Curious. Curiosity opens the eyes. It creates space. It allows you to see more than the first emotion, and in that space, opportunity becomes easier to notice. Think about your daily life. There are needs all around you. People need clarity. People need support. People need better systems. People need better words. People need better tools. People need someone who can listen, organize, solve, teach, build, repair, simplify, or guide. Wealth often begins when attention moves from "what can I get" to "what can I notice?" Because noticing comes before creating. You cannot solve a problem you never see. You cannot build value in a place your attention never visits. You cannot recognize a door if your eyes are always fixed on the wall. So the question becomes simple. What are you training your attention to notice? Every day, your mind is being trained by something. By the content you watch, by the conversations you repeat, by the accounts you follow, by the problems you avoid, by the questions you ask before you sleep, by the first thoughts you allow in the morning. If your attention is constantly trained by noise, it will become hard to hear wisdom. If it is constantly trained by outrage, it will become hard to feel calm. If it is constantly trained by other people's highlight reels, it will become hard to respect your own path. This is why attention must be protected. Not aggressively, gently, intentionally. You do not need to disappear from the world. You only need to stop handing your focus to everything that weakens your future. When you protect your attention, you protect the part of your mind that can recognize opportunity. Start with a simple practice. At the end of each day, ask yourself 3 questions. What problem did I notice today? What skill could help me solve it? Where did I see a small opening for a value? Do not make this complicated. Maybe you noticed that people at work are confused by a process. That may be an opportunity to become the person who brings clarity. Maybe you noticed that someone keeps asking the same question online. That may be an opportunity to create helpful content, a service, a product, or a better explanation. Maybe you noticed that you keep struggling with the same task. That may be an opportunity to build a skill that others may one day pay for. Maybe you noticed that your own life has a repeated frustration. That frustration may point towards something you need to learn, improve, or eventually help others with. Opportunity is not always far away. Sometimes it is hidden inside what keeps repeating. So, the same complaint, the same confusion, the same delay, the same need, the same question, the same pain point. A trained mind pays attention to repetition because repetition reveals demand. If many people struggle with the same thing, value may be created there. If you keep facing the same obstacle, growth may be required there. If a certain problem keeps appearing in your environment, your next skill may be waiting inside it. This is how wealth begins to look different. It is no longer just a distant result. It becomes a way of seeing, noticing, listening, connecting, asking better questions, paying attention to where life is asking for value. And this way of seeing does not need to be loud. You can practice it quietly. Tonight, as your body relaxes, allow your mind to remember one moment from today. A moment you almost dismissed, a problem you saw, a need you noticed, a conversation that revealed something, a place where someone needed help, clarity, patience, organization, courage, or skill. Do not force an answer, just let the memory rise. Then ask softly, what was life showing me there? What could I learn from that? What value could be created if I paid attention longer? This is not pressure, it is awareness. You are teaching your mind to see differently. You are training it to look beyond the surface. Because the surface says, this is just a problem. But deeper attention says, this may be a signal. The surface says, this is annoying. Deeper attention says, this may reveal a need. The surface says, this is not my concern. Deeper attention says, this may be where my next skill begins. And when your attention changes, your direction changes. You begin to spend less time asking why life is unfair and more time asking where value is needed. You begin to notice that opportunity is often quiet before it becomes visible. You begin to understand that wealth is not only attracted by desire, it is built by perception, by noticing what others overlook, by solving what others tolerate, by improving what others complain about, by becoming useful where others remain distracted. This is the calm power of attention. It does not chase, it observes. It does not panic, it studies. It does not compare, it creates. So protect your attention tonight. Let go of the noise that trains you to feel behind. Let go of the comparison that makes your own path look too small. Let go of the constant input that fills your mind but does not strengthen your life. Return to one quiet question. Where can I create value tomorrow? Not everywhere. Not for everyone. Just one place. One problem. One skill. One small opening. That is enough. Your attention creates your financial direction, so train it carefully. Train it to see needs. Train it to see patterns. Train it to see value. Train it to see the quiet opportunities that appear when the mind is calm enough to notice. And once you begin to see opportunity more clearly, the next step is to become the kind of person who can answer it. Because noticing value is only the beginning. Building value is where wealth becomes real. That is where we go next. Chapter 5. Become valuable before you become wealthy. Wealth becomes more stable when it is built on value. Not noise, not image, not the need to look successful. Value. This is where the journey becomes practical. Because it is not enough to think about wealth. It is not enough to desire abundance. It is not enough to imagine a better financial life while your daily actions remain disconnected from what the world actually needs. A trained mind understands this. Money follows value. Not always immediately. Not always perfectly. Not always in the way you expected. But over time, money moves toward people, skills, systems, and solutions that create value for others. This is not a punishment. It is not pressure. It is simply a principle. If you want to build wealth with peace, you must stop asking only, "How can I receive more?" and begin asking, "How can I become more useful?" That question changes everything. It moves you out of passive waiting. It moves you out of comparison. It moves you out of hoping someone will discover you, rescue you, approve of you, or give you permission. It brings your attention back to what you can build, what you can learn, what you can improve, what you can solve, what you can offer. Because wealth that lasts is rarely built by wanting alone. It is built by becoming someone who can create outcomes, someone who can make life easier, clearer, faster, calmer, stronger, or more organized for another person. That is value. Value is not always dramatic. Sometimes value is helping someone understand something they could not see before. Sometimes value is finishing work with care when others rush. Sometimes value is simplifying a confusing process. Sometimes value is showing up consistently when others disappear. Sometimes value is becoming skilled enough that people trust you with more responsibility. And trust is one of the quiet foundations of wealth. People pay for trust. They return to trust. They recommend trust. They build with trust. Skills create leverage. Value creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity creates income. And income, managed wisely, can become wealth. Let that sequence settle in your mind. Skills create leverage. Value creates trust. Trust creates opportunity. Opportunity creates income. Income, managed wisely, becomes wealth. This is not fantasy. This is structure. And structure is calming because it gives your mind something real to practice. You do not have to wonder endlessly how wealth will come. You can begin with the next skill, the next problem, the next useful action, the next honest improvement. This is why becoming valuable must come before becoming wealthy. If wealth arrives before character, it may create chaos. If opportunity arrives before skill, it may create pressure. If income grows before discipline, it may disappear quickly. But when value grows first, wealth has a stronger place to land. So ask yourself gently, what skill would make me more useful? What problem do people around me keep facing? What result could I help someone create? What area of my work, my business, my creativity, or my communication could become stronger? Do not ask these questions with anxiety. Ask them with patience. You are not behind. You are being directed. Every honest answer becomes a doorway. Maybe you need to learn how to communicate more clearly. Maybe you need to improve your financial knowledge. Maybe you need to build a technical skill. Maybe you need to become better at writing, selling, organizing, leading, designing, teaching, editing, managing, or solving one specific type of problem. Do not try to become valuable everywhere. That creates confusion. Choose one place, one skill, one area where improvement would create more trust, and begin there, quietly, consistently, without needing immediate applause. Because value grows in private before it is rewarded in public. A person becomes valuable through repetition, through study, through feedback, through practice, through doing the small thing better than yesterday. through staying with a skill long enough for it to become reliable. This is the part many people skip. They want the reward before the refinement. They want recognition before consistency. They want wealth before usefulness. But a trained mind does not rush this order. It respects the process. It understands that every day can become a place to build value. Not in a frantic way, not by turning life into endless work, but by giving one focused part of the day to improvement. 30 minutes, 1 hour, one block of attention. Enough to move forward, enough to sharpen a skill, enough to prove to yourself that you are becoming more capable. At the end of each day, ask one simple question. What did I improve today that could serve someone tomorrow? That question trains your mind differently. It takes you away from empty wishing. It brings you into creation. And creation is peaceful when it is not driven by panic. You can build value calmly. You can improve without rushing. You can become useful without losing yourself. You can grow without turning your life into pressure. This is important for the mind to understand. Wealth is not a demand to abandon peace. It is an invitation to become more aligned, more skilled, more responsible, more able to contribute. When you become valuable, you do not need to beg for every opportunity. You begin to recognize where you fit. You begin to speak with more confidence because your confidence is supported by practice. You begin to charge with more clarity because your work has more substance. You begin to receive with less guilt because you know you have given real value. This is how financial confidence becomes grounded, not in pretending, in proof, not in loud ambition, in quiet capability, not in chasing every shiny path, in building one clear strength at a time. So tonight, let your mind rest on this idea. You do not need to become everything at once. You only need to become more useful in one honest direction. One skill can open a door. One solved problem can create trust. One repeated improvement can change how you see yourself. One area of value, practiced with patience, can become the foundation of a new financial life. Begin simply. Choose one skill that could increase your ability to create value. Write it down. Then choose one small practice you can repeat tomorrow. Not a dramatic promise, a realistic action. Read for 20 minutes. Practice for 30. Study one lesson. Improve one piece of work. Ask for one piece of feedback. Solve one small problem better than before. This is how value grows. Quietly, patiently, repeatedly. And as value grows, your relationship with wealth begins to change. You stop seeing wealth as something far away, waiting to choose you. You begin seeing it as something connected to who you are becoming, what you are learning, and how deeply you are willing to serve through your strengths. Money follows value. Build value daily. And as you learn to build value, the next step is to stop depending on urgency, because value needs structure, growth needs rhythm, and wealth becomes stronger when your life is supported by systems, not panic. That is where we go next. Chapter 6. Build systems instead of chasing urgency. Urgency can make you move, but it does not always make you grow. There is a difference. Urgency pushes. Systems support. Urgency says, do something now or you will fall behind. A system says, do the right thing consistently and your life will begin to stabilize. Many people live their financial life inside urgency. They wait until the pressure becomes painful. Then they act. They wait until the bill is late. Then they panic. They wait until motivation returns. Then they begin again. They wait until fear rises. Then they make a decision from tension instead of clarity. This creates motion, but not always progress. Because urgency is not the same as direction. You can move quickly and still move in circles. You can work hard and still avoid the one action that matters. You can stay busy all day and still build nothing that makes tomorrow stronger. This is why systems matter. A system is a calm structure that carries you when emotion changes. It is a repeated way of doing what matters before life becomes chaotic. It is the quiet rhythm that keeps you moving without needing fear to push you. A system does not need to be complicated. In fact, the best systems are usually simple. A time to review, a place to write things down, a habit for tracking, a weekly rhythm, a focused block of work, a clear rule before spending, a small routine before sleep. A system is not there to control your life. It is there to protect your energy. Because without structure, your mind must decide everything again and again. Should I save today? Should I study today? Should I check my numbers today? Should I work on the skill today? Should I avoid the distraction today? When every good choice depends on your mood, your future becomes unstable. But when a system is in place, the decision has already been made. You do not need to debate. You simply return. Return to the habit. Return to the review. Return to the next step. Return to the structure that supports the person you are becoming. This is how wealth becomes less emotional. It becomes less dependent on sudden motivation, less dependent on panic, less dependent on whether you feel strong today. A calm system says, even when my emotions change, my direction remains. That is power, quiet power, the kind that does not need to announce itself. Think of a system like a riverbank. The water is your energy. Some days it flows strongly. Some days it moves slowly. Some days it feels scattered. But the riverbank gives it direction. Without the riverbank, the water spreads everywhere. With the riverbank, it moves forward. Your system is the riverbank. It gives your effort a path. It turns scattered energy into steady movement. This is especially important when building wealth, because wealth is rarely built by one dramatic action. It is built by repeated actions that have a place to go. Money reviewed every week. Skills practiced consistently. Spending noticed before it becomes unconscious. Value created before distraction takes over. Goals broken into small steps. Decisions made from rules, not emotional storms. A system makes the right action easier to repeat, and what becomes easier to repeat becomes easier to trust. So begin with one system, not 10. 1. If you try to build a perfect life overnight, you will create pressure, and pressure will make you quit. Start smaller. Choose one area where your life feels reactive. Maybe money, maybe work, maybe learning, maybe your morning, maybe your evening, maybe your focus. Then ask, what simple structure would make this easier to return to? If money feels chaotic, create a weekly money review. Same day, same time, same place. Look at income, look at spending, look at what is coming next. Choose one adjustment, then close the review. No drama, no punishment, just structure. If work feels scattered, create one focused block each day. No notifications, one task, one clear outcome. Start with 30 minutes if that is what you can hold. Protect it gently. Return to it daily. If learning feels inconsistent, choose one skill and one time. Same skill, same time, same small session. Do not ask every day whether you feel like learning. Let the system answer for you. If spending feels impulsive, create one rule. Pause before buying. Wait 24 hours for non-essential purchases. Write the reason before you spend. Ask, does this support the life I'm building? That rule becomes a system. A small gate between emotion and action. And every small gate protects your future. This is how structure becomes freedom. At first, discipline may feel like restriction, but over time, structure gives you peace. Because you no longer have to live at the mercy of your impulses. You no longer have to wait for crisis. You no longer have to restart your life every Monday. You can move steadily, calmly, quietly. with a rhythm that does not depend on fear. This is the difference between chasing urgency and building systems. Urgency burns energy. Systems preserve energy. Urgency creates spikes. Systems create stability. Urgency reacts to pressure. Systems prepare before pressure arrives. Urgency asks, "What can I do right now because I am afraid?" A system asks, "What can I repeat so my future becomes stronger?" Let that question settle. What can I repeat so my future becomes stronger? Not what can I force? Not what can I prove? Not what can I fix in one night? What can I repeat? Because repetition with structure becomes momentum, and momentum with patience becomes transformation. Tonight, think of one place in your life that needs a riverbank. One place where your energy keeps spilling. One place where you keep reacting instead of returning. Do not judge it. Just notice it. Then imagine placing a simple structure around it. A weekly review, a daily practice, a quiet rule, a focused block, a small written plan, a repeated question, something gentle enough to keep, something clear enough to guide you. This is how you begin to build from power instead of panic. You create a structure that your future self can trust. You make the next right action easier. You reduce the need for dramatic motivation. You teach your mind that growth does not have to feel chaotic. It can feel steady. It can feel simple. It can feel quiet. And quiet progress is still progress. Sometimes it is the strongest kind. So choose one system, protect it, return to it. Let it carry you on the days when emotion is weak and motivation is quiet. Do not chase urgency. Build structure. Because value needs rhythm. Growth needs rhythm. Wealth needs rhythm. And once you begin to build with systems, you're ready for the next level of inner responsibility. You're ready to stop thinking only like someone who reacts to life. You're ready to think like someone who owns their direction. That is where we go next. Chapter 7. Think like an owner. Ownership begins before you own anything. It begins as a posture, a way of standing inside your own life, a way of looking at problems without immediately handing your power away. Many people think ownership means having a business, a house, an investment account, or a title. But ownership is deeper than that. Ownership is the decision to stop living as if your life is only happening to you. It is the quiet shift from, "Why is this happening?" to, "What part of this is mine to improve?" That question changes the mind. It does not blame you for everything. It does not say every problem is your fault. It does not deny unfairness, difficulty, or circumstances outside your control. It simply returns your attention to the place where your power still exists. Because there is always a difference between fault and responsibility. Fault asks, "Who caused this?" Responsibility asks, "What can I do now?" Fault looks backward. Responsibility looks forward. Fault searches for someone to accuse. Responsibility searches for the next useful action, and a trained mind learns to live closer to responsibility, not because it is easy, but because it is powerful. When you think like an owner, you stop waiting for perfect conditions before you begin. You stop needing everyone to understand your path. You stop giving your energy to complaints that do not change the situation. You begin to ask better questions. What can I learn from this? What system failed here? What decision led to this result? What standard needs to rise? What skill would make this easier next time? What part of this outcome belongs to me? These questions may feel uncomfortable, but they are freeing. Because every honest answer gives you something you can work with. The victim mind says, "There is nothing I can do." The owner mind says, "There is something I can improve." The victim mind waits for rescue. The owner mind builds capacity. The victim mind repeats the story. The owner mind studies the result. This does not mean you become harsh with yourself. It means you become honest without collapsing. There is a calm kind of honesty that does not punish you. It simply says, this happened, now let me understand it. That is ownership. Calm responsibility without self-attack. Clear awareness without shame. A willingness to look at the result and learn from it. This mindset changes how you handle money. When a consumer sees money, they often ask, what can this give me right now? Relief, status, comfort, a quick reward, a moment of escape. But an owner asks a different question. What can this build? Can this money reduce future pressure? Can this money strengthen a skill? Can this money support a system? Can this money create more stability? Can this money be placed somewhere with intention? The consumer looks for release. The owner looks for direction. The consumer spends to change a feeling. The owner decides to support a future. Again, this does not mean you never enjoy money. Joy is not the enemy. Rest is not the enemy. Pleasure is not the enemy. But ownership asks you to become conscious, to know why you are choosing, to know what the choice is building, to know whether the decision strengthens or weakens the life you are creating. This is how financial maturity deepens, not by becoming rigid, but by becoming awake. An owner is awake inside decisions, awake inside habits, awake inside patterns, awake inside results. And when something goes wrong, the owner does not immediately run from the lesson. They sit with it. They breathe. They study. They ask, what is this teaching me? Maybe a failed project is showing you that your planning was unclear. Maybe a lost opportunity is showing you that your preparation was not strong enough yet. Maybe a financial mistake is showing you that emotion was making decisions faster than wisdom. Maybe a repeated frustration is showing you that a system needs to be built. Every result is feedback, not identity. Feedback. A bad result does not mean you are a bad person. A mistake does not mean you are incapable. A setback does not mean your future is closed. It simply gives you information about what needs to be adjusted. Owners use feedback. They do not worship it. They do not fear it. They do not let it define their entire life. They use it quietly, honestly, repeatedly. This is why ownership creates power, because the moment you stop blaming everything outside of you, you find the small door back into action. Sometimes the door is very small. One apology, one adjustment, one budget review, one difficult conversation, one skill session, one cleaner decision, one better boundary, one honest plan. But small doors still open, and every time you walk through one, you prove to yourself that you are not helpless. You are involved, you are learning, you are responsible for the direction you can influence. Tonight, let this idea settle gently. You do not need to control everything. You only need to own what is yours, your choices, your standards, your preparation, your habits, your response, your willingness to learn, your willingness to return to the next right action. This is where peace and power meet. Peace comes from releasing what is not yours to control. Power comes from fully owning what is. And the more clearly you separate the two, the less energy you waste. You stop fighting reality. You start working with it. You stop asking life to become easier before you become stronger. You begin strengthening the part of you that can respond well. So practice this simply. The next time something does not go the way you hoped, write 4 lines. Decision, result, lesson. Next action. That is all. What decision was made? What result did it create? What lesson can be taken? What is the next responsible action? This practice trains the owner mind. It turns confusion into clarity. It turns regret into instruction. It turns disappointment into movement, and it keeps you from drowning in the story, because the story can become endless. Why it happened, who should have helped, why it was unfair, why it should have been different. Some of that may be true, but truth without action can still keep you stuck. Ownership does not erase the truth. It asks, now what? What now? That question is simple, but it is powerful. It brings you back to the present moment, back to your hands, back to your breath, back to the one next thing you can do. And that is enough to begin again. Think like an owner, not because you already have everything, but because you are preparing yourself to handle more. More money, more responsibility, more opportunity, more pressure, more trust, more freedom. The owner mindset prepares you for all of it. Because wealth does not only ask, can you receive? It asks, can you take responsibility? Can you study the result? Can you adjust without shame? Can you build without blaming? Can you lead yourself when no one is watching? That is the deeper training. Ownership turns problems into power. So tonight, release what is not yours. Own what is. Let the mind become calm. Let the body rest. And let this question stay with you. What part of this is mine to improve? Carry that question quietly. It will make you stronger. It will make you clearer. It will return your power to the place where action is possible. And once you begin to think like an owner, you're ready to work with the deepest layer of training, the subconscious mind. The quiet place where repeated thoughts become familiar. The place that becomes most open when the world grows still. That is where we go next. Chapter 8. Reprogram your subconscious before sleep. The final thoughts of the night matter, not because they magically create your future, but because they shape the emotional tone your mind carries into rest. Before sleep, the world becomes quieter. The body begins to slow down. The noise of the day starts to fade. Your conscious mind becomes less forceful, and in that quiet space, repeated thoughts can settle more deeply. This is why the night must be protected, not with fear, not with strict control, but with care. Because many people fall asleep while feeding the mind with tension. They scroll through bad news and they compare their life to strangers. They replay old mistakes. They worry about tomorrow. They think about money from a place of pressure. They carry unresolved conversations, unfinished tasks, and heavy emotions into the dark. Then they wonder why they wake up tired before the day begins. The mind does not simply turn off because the lights go out. It continues to process what you gave it. So if the final input is fear, the body may sleep while the nervous system remains alert. If the final input is comparison, the mind may rest inside a feeling of lack. If the final input is panic, tomorrow may begin with the same pressure you tried to escape. This is not something to judge. It is something to understand. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition, emotion, and familiarity. It pays attention to what you keep returning to. The same fears, the same images, the same stories, the same inner sentences, the same emotional atmosphere. Over time, what is repeated begins to feel normal, and what feels normal begins to guide behavior. So before sleep, you have a quiet opportunity. You can stop giving your mind the old atmosphere. You can give it something steadier, something calmer, something more aligned with the person you are becoming. This does not require a complicated ritual. It does not require perfect meditation. It does not require forcing yourself to feel rich, successful, or fearless. It begins with choosing your final input. What do you allow into your mind before you rest? What voices do you let shape your inner world? What images do you carry into sleep? What thoughts do you repeat when the room becomes quiet? These questions matter because the mind becomes familiar with what it visits every night. If it visits fear every night, fear becomes familiar. If it visits regret every night, regret becomes familiar. If it visits calm responsibility every night, calm responsibility becomes more familiar too. And familiarity is powerful. The mind often follows what feels familiar, even when what is familiar is not helpful. So tonight, you begin to make calm familiar. You make responsibility familiar. You make receiving feel safer. You make steady growth feel normal. You make wealth feel less like fantasy and more like a life you are slowly learning how to hold. Start simply. Before sleep, remove one source of noise. One. Not everything. Just one. Maybe you stop scrolling 10 minutes earlier. Maybe you do not check financial stress at the very last moment of the night. Maybe you do not fall asleep to comparison. Maybe you choose not to end the day inside someone else's highlight reel. Create a small space, a quiet space, a space where the mind can breathe. Then place a better thought inside that space. Not a loud affirmation, not a sentence your body rejects. A steady sentence. A sentence your mind can believe enough to repeat. I am learning to become calm around money. I am becoming someone who creates value. I can receive and manage wealth responsibly. I can make wiser decisions one day at a time. I am safe to grow slowly. Choose one. Let it be simple. Let it be honest. Let it be calm. Say it slowly, as if you are not trying to convince yourself, but gently introducing your mind to a new possibility. You are not arguing with the old pattern. You are not fighting the past. You are giving the mind a new place to return. This is how subconscious training begins. Not through force, through repetition, through emotional safety, through quiet exposure to a better direction. Imagine placing a seed into soil. You do not shout at the seed. You do not demand that it become a tree by morning. You place it gently. You cover it. You water it. You return. Night after night, you return. The subconscious mind responds to this kind of repetition. Soft, steady, familiar. And over time, the new thought begins to feel less foreign. The calm sentence becomes easier to believe. The responsible image becomes easier to hold. The future begins to feel less threatening. You may also use this quiet time to visualize, but not as fantasy. Do not imagine wealth as escape. Do not imagine money as revenge. Do not imagine success only as applause, luxury, or proof. Imagine responsible wealth. Imagine yourself opening your account calmly. Imagine yourself making a clear decision. Imagine yourself receiving payment without guilt. Imagine yourself saving without fear. Imagine yourself investing in a skill with patience. Imagine yourself saying no with peace. Imagine yourself saying yes with clarity. Imagine yourself building something slowly and respecting the process. This kind of visualization trains the body to feel safer with growth. It tells the mind, this is not danger. This is preparation. And that matters. Because if your body believes growth is dangerous, you may unconsciously avoid it. But if your body begins to associate growth with calm, patience, and responsibility, your actions can begin to change. Not overnight, but steadily. There is no need to rush this. The night is not a battlefield. It is a place of repair, a place of release, a place where the mind can stop rehearsing fear and begin rehearsing peace. So create a simple night practice. 3 minutes. That is enough. 1 minute to breathe. 1 minute to repeat your chosen sentence. 1 minute to imagine yourself handling wealth with calm responsibility. Then let it go. Do not overthink it. Do not measure whether it worked. Do not demand a result by morning. Just repeat the practice. Let the repetition become familiar. Let the familiarity become belief. Let the belief become behavior. And let the behavior become evidence. This is how the inner world is trained. Quietly, patiently, night by night. Before sleep, your mind is not asking for more pressure. It is asking for a better atmosphere. Give it calm, give it clarity. Give it a sentence that strengthens you. Give it an image of yourself becoming more responsible, more capable, more prepared. And as you rest, allow the old emotional noise to loosen. You do not need to carry every fear into tomorrow. You do not need to rehearse lack before you sleep. You do not need to fall asleep inside the same story that made you feel small. Tonight, you can choose a different final thought, a different emotional tone, a different inner direction. What you repeat before sleep becomes easier to believe awake. So repeat wisely. Repeat gently. Repeat what supports the person you are becoming. And when morning comes, the work continues. Because the identity you plant at night must be proven in the light of day, through choices, through habits, through repeated action. That is where we go next. Chapter 9. Prove the new identity with repeated action. A new identity is not proven by one inspired thought. It is proven by what you return to, again and again and again. The mind can receive a new idea at night. It can feel calm while listening. It can imagine a stronger future. It can repeat a sentence that feels peaceful. But when morning comes, the new identity must meet real life. The bill, the decision, the distraction, the old habit, the uncomfortable task, the moment when no one is watching. This is where identity becomes real. Not in the moment you hear the idea, but in the moment you practice it. A thought can open the door, but action walks through it. This is why repeated action matters. Because the mind does not fully trust what you say once. It begins to trust what you prove often. If you say, "I'm becoming responsible," but continue avoiding every financial detail, the mind receives mixed evidence. If you say, "I am building wealth," but never build skill, never review money, never finish useful work, the sentence remains unsupported. If you say, "I'm calm," but every small pressure controls your behavior, the old pattern still has more proof than the new one. This is not a reason to judge yourself. It is a reason to become consistent. Consistency gives your mind evidence, and evidence gives identity weight. You do not need huge actions to change the identity. You need repeated actions, small enough to keep, clear enough to measure, honest enough to trust. A 5-minute review, a 10-minute study session, one spending pause, 1-page read, one skill practiced, one promise kept, one small task finished before distraction. These actions may not look impressive, but they matter, because each one tells the mind, "This is who I am becoming." And the mind listens to repeated proof. Think of identity like a path through grass. The first time you walk through it, the grass rises again. The path is barely visible. The second time, it bends a little more. The 10th time, the line becomes clearer. The 100th time, there is a path where there used to be resistance. This is what repeated action does inside you. It makes the new way easier to return to. At first, responsibility may feel unnatural. At first, calm may feel unfamiliar. At first, discipline may feel like effort. At first, building value may feel slow. But repetition lowers the resistance. What once required force begins to require less negotiation. What once felt like a new behavior begins to feel like a normal part of your day. That is the quiet power of repetition. It does not shout. It shapes. It does not impress. It installs. It does not promise overnight change. It builds trust slowly. And trust built slowly is often the trust that lasts. So ask yourself, what action would prove the new identity today? Not what action would impress someone else. Not what action would transform your life in one dramatic moment. One action, one quiet vote, one piece of evidence. If your new identity says, "I'm calm around money," then one action might be looking at one number without judgment. If your new identity says, "I am becoming valuable," then one action might be practicing one skill for 30 minutes. If your new identity says, "I manage what I have responsibly," then one action might be tracking one purchase. If your new identity says, "I build from structure," then one action might be returning to the system you chose. If your new identity says, "I think like an owner," then one action might be writing down the lesson from a result instead of staying inside the complaint. This is how the inner change becomes visible. Not all at once, not perfectly, repeatedly. You do not need to become flawless. You only need to become honest enough to return. Return after distraction. Return after a mistake. Return after a low-energy day. Return after fear speaks. Return after the old pattern tries to pull you back. The return is part of the proof. Many people think consistency means never breaking the rhythm, but real consistency is learning how to return without making the break your identity. Missing one day does not erase you. Making one mistake does not define you. Falling into an old reaction does not mean nothing has changed. It means you noticed. And once you notice, you can return. That return is powerful. It says, the old pattern is not in charge anymore. It says, I may have paused, but I have not quit. It says, I'm still becoming. This is why shame is not useful here. Shame freezes the identity. Responsibility moves it. Shame says, this is who I am. Responsibility says, this is what I can adjust. The new identity needs responsibility, not punishment. It needs evidence, not perfection. It needs repetition, not drama. So tonight, imagine your future self not as someone who changed through one miracle, but as someone who kept returning to the right small actions, quietly, patiently, without needing every day to feel special. Imagine the version of you who reviews money calmly, the version of you who practices a skill before consuming noise, the version of you who pauses before spending from emotion, the version of you who studies a mistake and takes the next action, the version of you who keeps promises that no one else sees. That version is not built in one night, but it can begin tonight, and tomorrow it can be proven again. One action, one vote, one return, one small piece of evidence. This is how the mind begins to believe the new story. Because the story is no longer only spoken, it is lived. There is peace in this. You do not have to force belief. You can build belief. You do not have to demand confidence. You can collect confidence through action. You do not have to wait until you feel like a wealthy person. You can practice the behaviors of someone who is becoming more stable, more skilled, more responsible, and more prepared. And over time, those behaviors become familiar. The familiar becomes natural. The natural becomes identity. And identity begins to shape the direction of your life. So choose your proof. Before this night ends, choose one small action for tomorrow. Make it simple. Make it clear. Make it repeatable. Maybe you will look at one number. Maybe you will practice one skill. Maybe you will write one plan. Maybe you will pause before one purchase. Maybe you will finish one task that strengthens your future. Do not choose something dramatic. Choose something you can keep. Because the goal is not intensity, the goal is identity. Repetition makes the new you believable. So let the mind rest on that truth. You are not waiting to become someone new. You are proving it, one small action at a time. And when that evidence becomes steady enough, the final question becomes clear. If more wealth, more opportunity, and more responsibility came into your life, could it trust you? That is where we go next. Chapter 10. Become someone. Wealth can trust. The final question is not only, can I attract wealth? The deeper question is, can wealth trust me? Can more money enter your life without creating more chaos? Can more opportunity come to you without making you lose your center? Can more responsibility be placed in your hands without turning into pressure, ego, or fear? This is where the journey becomes mature. Because wealth is not only received, it is held, it is managed, it is protected, it is directed, it is grown with patience. Many people want more before they are steady with what they already have. They want more income, but do not know where the current income goes. They want more freedom, but have not built the discipline that freedom requires. They want bigger opportunities, but still avoid small responsibilities. They want to receive more, but feel guilty when good things arrive. They want financial peace, but make decisions from impulse, comparison, or fear. This is not a reason for shame. It is a call to preparation, because more does not automatically make life better. More reveals what is already inside you. More money can reveal discipline, or it can reveal avoidance. More opportunity can reveal confidence, or it can reveal insecurity. More freedom can reveal purpose, or it can reveal disorder. More attention can reveal leadership, or it can reveal ego. This is why becoming trustworthy with wealth matters. Trustworthy does not mean perfect. It means steady enough to learn, honest enough to look, responsible enough to adjust, calm enough to pause, humble enough to grow. A person wealth can trust is not someone who never makes mistakes. It is someone who studies mistakes instead of hiding from them. It is someone who can receive without becoming careless, spend without becoming impulsive, save without becoming fearful, earn without becoming arrogant, grow without becoming detached from what matters. This kind of person does not use wealth to prove worth. They use wealth as a tool for stability, a tool for service, a tool for options, a tool for contribution, a tool for building a life with more intention. That distinction matters. When money becomes proof of your worth, every financial moment becomes emotional. Every gain feels like validation. Every loss feels like identity damage. Every comparison feels personal. Every delay feels like failure. But when money becomes a tool, the mind becomes calmer. A tool can be learned. A tool can be managed. A tool can be improved. A tool can be used wisely over time. This is the grounded relationship with wealth, not worship, not fear, not obsession, not avoidance. Stewardship, the ability to care for what is in your hands. Start there, with what is already in your hands. The money you have now, the time you have now, the energy you have now, the skills you have now, the relationships you have now, the opportunities you have now, even if they are small. Do not wait for a larger life before you practice a stronger standard. Practice the standard now. If you want to be trusted with more money, become honest with the money you already touch. If you want to be trusted with more opportunity, become reliable with the opportunity already present. If you want to be trusted with more freedom, become disciplined with the time already given to you. If you want to be trusted with more influence, become careful with the words you already speak. The way you handle small things trains you for larger things. Not because small things are all you deserve, but because small things reveal how you carry responsibility. A person who respects $10 is training the mind to respect 10,000. A person who protects one focused hour is training the mind to protect a larger vision. A person who keeps one private promise is training the mind to carry public responsibility. Nothing is wasted. Every small act of stewardship becomes preparation. Every clean decision becomes evidence. Every calm response becomes strength. Every honest review becomes trust. So ask yourself gently, can I receive more without guilt? Can I spend without impulse? Can I save without fear? Can I earn without ego? Can I grow without chaos? Can I manage success without losing peace? These questions are not here to accuse you. They are here to strengthen you. They show you the areas where your inner capacity is still expanding. And capacity matters. Because wealth requires capacity. The capacity to hold pressure. The capacity to make decisions. The capacity to delay gratification. The capacity to see beyond today. The capacity to say no when no protects the future. The capacity to say yes when yes aligns with wisdom. The capacity to remain grounded when life improves. This is what you are building. Not just a desire for wealth, a capacity for wealth. A person with capacity does not panic when more arrives. They organize, They breathe. They ask better questions. They create direction. They do not let more become a reason to lose themselves. They let more become a reason to become more responsible. This is the highest form of abundance, not simply having more, but becoming more able to handle what comes. So tonight, let this final chapter settle deeply. You are not asking life to hand you something you are unwilling to carry. You are becoming someone who can carry more with wisdom. You are becoming someone who can receive and remain calm, grow and remain grounded, build and remain clear, succeed and remain kind. You are becoming someone wealth can trust, and that begins with the next small act of responsibility. One review, one pause, one honest decision, one promise kept, one better question, one calmer response, one place where you choose stewardship instead of impulse. Become trustworthy with little. Prepare yourself for more. That is the quiet standard. That is the deeper training. That is the person you are becoming. And now, as this journey comes to a close, let the mind rest in the identity we have been building from the beginning. Not an identity of pressure, not an identity of fear, but an identity of calm abundance. That is where we end. Outro. Rest in the identity of abundance. Now let everything become quiet. You do not need to chase anything in this moment. You do not need to force your future to arrive tonight. You do not need to solve every financial question before you rest. Just breathe. Let the body soften. Let the mind settle. Let the ideas from this journey find their place inside you. You began by looking at the identity behind your financial life. You saw that wealth is not only connected to what you earn, but to what feels normal, safe, and possible within you. Then, you learned to recognize the old pattern of scarcity, the fear that sounds like logic, the voice that tells you to shrink before you even begin. You practiced the pause. You learned to ask better questions. You learned that a calm no is different from a fearful no. Then, you built emotional safety around money. You learned that numbers are not your worth. They are signals. They are information. They are something you can work with. One number, one emotion, one calm next step. Then, your attention began to change. You started to see that opportunity is often quiet. It appears inside problems, inside needs, inside patterns, inside places where value can be created. And from there, you learned that wealth becomes more stable when it is built on value. Not image, not noise, not empty desire. Value, skill, trust, usefulness. The ability to help, solve, clarify, build, teach, organize, or improve something real. Then, you learn to build systems instead of chasing urgencies. Because growth needs rhythm, value needs rhythm, wealth needs rhythm. A calm system can carry you when motivation is quiet. And after that, you stepped into ownership, the posture of responsibility. The quiet question, what part of this is mine to improve? Not to blame yourself, but to return your power to the place where action is possible. Then, as the night grew softer, you turned toward the subconscious mind. You learned that the final thoughts of the night matter. You learned to protect the last input, to repeat what strengthens you, to imagine responsible wealth, not fantasy wealth, to make calm more familiar than fear. Then, you saw that the identity planted at night must be proven in the light of day, through repeated action, small proof, quiet proof. One promise kept, one skill practiced, one number reviewed, one return after a mistake, one vote for the person you are becoming. And finally, you asked the deeper question, can wealth trust me? Can I receive more without guilt? Can I grow without chaos? Can I manage what I have with calm responsibility? Can I become someone who is prepared for more? This is the journey. Not a race, not a fantasy, not a desperate chase. A training. A quiet rebuilding of the mind. A return to clarity. A return to responsibility. A return to the steady part of you that knows growth does not need to be chaotic. So before you rest, take this simple challenge with you. For the next 72 hours, practice one small act each day. On day 1, rewrite 3 old money beliefs. Name the sentence that has kept you small. Then write a calmer, more responsible sentence in its place. On day 2, pause before one financial reaction. Before you spend, avoid, panic, compare, or shrink. Pause. Breathe. Ask, what would calm responsibility choose? On day 3, take one value-building action. Practice a skill. Review your work. Solve one small problem. Create one useful thing. Improve one part of your future quietly. That is enough. Do not make the challenge dramatic. Make it real. Make it calm. Make it something you can keep. And if this audiobook helped you feel calmer, clearer, and more prepared for your financial journey, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Inner Power Audio, and share it with someone who is quietly building a better future. Your support helps this message reach people who need peace, discipline, and inner strength. Now, let the final words settle. You do not need to force anything now. Let the mind rest. Let the body soften. Let the new identity settle quietly within you. You are training your mind. You are becoming calmer. You are becoming clearer. You are becoming more responsible with the life, money, and opportunities already in your hands. You are learning to create value. You are learning to receive with peace. You are learning to manage with wisdom. You are learning to grow without fear. Rest now. Train the mind. Become the person prosperity can stay with.